Premier Automotive Group is making a difference in our community. Troy and Tracy Duhan founded Giving Hope NOLA to serve those in need in the greater New Orleans area. Giving Hope NOLA operates the food pantry of New Orleans, which has fed thousands of people hot meals since it opened in 2013. We specifically target both children and the elderly in New Orleans East. Giving Hope NOLA and Premier Automotive is making a difference. Learn more by visiting givinghopenola.org. The New Orleans Pelicans have resumed playing following the All-Star break. Well, at least some have resumed playing, some never resumed playing, and some try to resume playing, and they're not playing now. Injuries are already a big part of the headlines where the New Orleans Pelicans are concerned. Currently 10th in the Western Conference. Split their Florida road trip last week, losing in Orlando, winning in Miami, and now without Anthony Davis for a week to 2 weeks. More on that coming up. Ryan Anderson done as well for 2 to 4 weeks. He was hurt in Miami, and then Pelicans against Toronto here in just a few minutes, and then Wednesday against Brooklyn, Friday against Miami as they get a chance to play some teams at home from the East. And of course, they've struggled against the East all season long for whatever reason. So when you look at this situation, Amy, and you see the injuries that have propped up again, this has been an injury-riddled season for the Pelicans.
An injury-riddled season that has kept the Pelicans at about 500. I mean, they're one game over. Now they're sitting in 10th place, a half a game behind Phoenix. OKC is on a roll at this particular point, moving into that 8th spot in the West. And really, the injuries couldn't have come at a worse time. At that point in the season where you really need to start putting something together, putting that momentum ride that every team looks at to try and have that final push that gets you into the playoffs. It's just a little bit bleak for the Pelicans right now. Well,
speaking of the injuries that we referenced, Brian, of course, here we go with Davis out 1 to 2 weeks, Anderson 2 to 4 weeks, Holiday still out of action, and who knows when he returns. So you look at what happened at the break. You got these injuries after the break. You already had Phoenix making several moves to improve their team, and Oklahoma City making dramatic moves to improve their team with Cantor in particular. They get DJ Augustine of New Orleans, and they get, just a whole lot of value from my perspective. Steve Novak, a shooter. So I know Durant's hurt right now, but I don't see them catching Oklahoma City, and they're going to have trouble catching Phoenix now.
Kenny, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I wish I didn't have to say this, but stick a fork in this team. And I'm going to go before the injuries. They go to Orlando, and this is it's wrong with this team, okay? You don't go there and lose to Orlando, and then they suffer these two debilitating injuries, in my opinion, in Miami. You can't do that, and this club is, and look, they're going to have a hard time holding on to that 10th spot, okay? Mm-hmm. They need everybody back, and they don't have it right now, and Coles is going to be a nice little addition, but he's not enough to get them back in that number 8 spot, and like Amy said, Durant's on the mend himself, but Okie City did a great job of improving their team before the trade deadline.
Well, let's take a look at the race for 8th overall to see exactly what we're referencing here, Ricky. And the Thunder now 6 games over, and they got 15 games left at home. Phoenix is a half a game ahead of New Orleans, and they've got 14 left at home. New Orleans with 14 at home as well, and they're a half game behind Phoenix, and you start to worry about the Thunder pulling away, Rick, for that 8th spot.
Well, about Durant going out, they're going to give the Pelicans a chance. But, we got Davis went out and Anderson went out. But I like picking up Cole. Cole, come from a champ team, played with LeVon and Wade and them. So he's a pretty good addition to the team. But what they got to do is let these guys play. And I think that I heard Monday talking about Davis. You're getting hurt again, but you got to realize that guys get hurt all the time. You got to play with what you got, and the team got to rally around, with him not being there.
Well, I think at this point, Brian, you have to worry about Davis's shoulder. This is the 3rd time that he's had shoulder issues. It might be more serious than we really know of or what's being let off.
I agree, and Ricky and I talked about this off air, is that obviously he perhaps wasn't ready to come back, all right? But this is an organization that realizes that they're on the fringe of making that playoff push, and you got to have your A player play, okay? And we'll see what happens.
And Amy, frankly, you talk about a team that if they don't make the playoffs this year, it could be the end for this regime. They've had 5 years.
No, I think it is, and I think that the other thing that'll be interesting is what does it mean in terms of Anthony Davis as well. You know, you got a player that really is one of the best in the NBA, but I think that, and while money does talk, don't get me wrong, at some point Anthony Davis is going to want to be on a team that competes for a championship. No player of that caliber doesn't want to have a ring at some point.
Ricky, here's the deal. If Anthony Davis loves Monty Williams might be back. If he just likes him, he might not be back.
Well, I mean, that's a situation there where, you know, you don't never let a player make that decision for you. I mean, my thing is, I mean, you got to get a good coach who, you know, going to take us to the championship. So you explain that to the player and you keep moving. If he don't want to be here, then, you know, you don't want to be here. You try to get something to compensate for him. But you don't never let that happen.
Sticking with hoops, let's go to the college level and take a look at what's transpiring right now. And the LSU Tigers on the bubble last week, lost on the road at A&M, won at Florida, got Auburn Tuesday night, then a big game Saturday against Ole Miss. That's important. That one could determine whether they get in or not. Tulane, they played UConn tough, but couldn't break through. 5-9 in the American, trying to stay above 500 on the year. UNO, tough loss to Northwestern State, 3-10 in the Southland, and they got Southeastern here this evening, and Abilene Christian coming up on Saturday. The story there, very simply, is LSU, Rick. They're the team that has a chance to make the NCAA.
Yeah, and I tell you what, man, I talked to Coach John, and I know that he got a great kids there, and he wants them to get in so bad. But look like to me, they kind of like the Pelicans. They let the one slip that they should win, and I mean, it's just tough on you when you keep doing that.
It's like every game's close, Brian.
Yeah, and look, they're trying to get that double bye in the SEC tournament. It means so much, and they've got 4 good opponents ahead of them. They got to go 3-1 in those. They got to beat the right teams too.
Now, do they get into the NCAA or not, Amy?
Yes, I think they do.
Yes.
I think that they are a low seed, but I do think that they're in.
All right, we go from hoops to hardball and college baseball, and things are looking pretty good. LSU at 6-1. They lost to Nicholls State, great win for the Colonels, but then swept Boston College. They got Princeton this week. Tulane, to me, is the big story, and what a difference David Pierce is making. They're winning games in their last at bat consistently against pretty good opposition. They're 6-1. They've got the Blue Jays of Creighton coming in, and then UNO swept this past weekend in the Major League Baseball Urban Youth Classic against SWAC teams. They're now 4-3, and they got Middle Tennessee, a traditional rival, coming in. So, Amy, I guess first and foremost, what impresses me most is Tulane. This is a team that, to me, is dramatically improved, and I think is going somewhere. I really believe that.
And I think that that's the one thing about Tulane athletics, that every year you do have to be excited about the potential of what will happen on the baseball field. And it's good to see that this team very early on is swinging the bats. And of course, we're always going to talk about LSU and what is expected, genuinely expected of the Tigers in Baton Rouge. But with Tulane, it's always a good year when both LSU and the Wave are playing well. It makes spring very exciting down here.
Well, I'll tell you what, you know, David Pierce is that shot of adrenaline that this program needs. He's probably saying the same thing that Rick Jones said in years past, but it's a different message. And look, they got a good chance to win the American Athletic Conference.
And I'll tell you what surprised me, that the SWAC's team beat UNO. I thought UNO had a better baseball team.
No, UNO swept this weekend. They won every game.
Yeah, they swept.
No, they swept the SWAC team this weekend. So they won them all.
I know they couldn't beat that. They had to beat that team.
Yeah.
Real quick on that, but that's a great tournament. Okay, the Urban Major League group puts on. It's an outstanding situation.
All right, some of the other outstanding local sports elements to keep an eye on this week include women's basketball tonight. Tulane at Devlin Fieldhouse against UConn in women's basketball. Good luck with that. And then tomorrow and Wednesday, baseball. The first NBC Cup, Tulane UNO. They play at Main Street Field Tuesday and at Turchin on Wednesday. Then Saturday, it's women's basketball at the Convocation Center. Dillard and Xavier, the men will play as well. So you're talking about the doubleheader, crosstown rivalry, always good stuff. These are outstanding sports entities. We encourage you to get out and see them. And if you want to see the best women's basketball team in America, go see UConn, because they are, after they demolished South Carolina recently. And by the way, beat Tulane pretty convincingly most recently as well. We'll take a timeout, back to talk about Premier Automotive and Premier Deals here on sportsNOLA TV.